It's the most wonderful time of the year. Not really Christmas music is what I'm talking about, but the open enrollment period for a lot of employers out there, and that includes conversations about your 401k. We're going to get into that here on this episode of Aspire to Retire with Ralph Short, Tim Short, and Scott Earhart of Welcome Home Financial Partners. You can go to welcomehomefp.com, find out more about them, set up a time to speak with them if you have questions about things we talk about on this episode or just questions about your retirement, your financial outlook in general. Again, welcomehomefp.com. We made it real easy for you. The link is right there in the podcast description. Just click on that. It'll take you right where you want to be. My name is Chris Vaughn, and I'm pleased to be joined with Ralph Short, Tim Short, and Scott Earhart. As always, gentlemen, glad to be with you. How you doing today?
Good, sir. How are you?
Doing well. I remember when I first, not when I first set out in the working world, but when I got my first 401k options at an employer, man, I didn't know what I was doing. You know, it was, oh, this one sounds good, or this one historically had the best returns, and I just picked that one. I think a lot of people out there possibly did that, probably might still continue to do that. If you do have a 401k out there, I want to know, how often does your employer hold a seminar with a representative to at least answer questions when it comes to the plan? I'm willing to bet for the majority of the people out there, the answer is never. And that's why people turn to their financial advisors, people like you guys, to help out, even when they're still working and contributing to a plan. So I have to wonder, how often do people come in and ask you to help in this area? And what advantages do you bring to the table versus just going it alone?
Well, there's a lot to that, right? Some of the advantages that you can see is, you get some professional advice. Chris, you're not the only person who's ever just picked, the highest rate of return since inception or what have you. There's a lot of people, we've seen it before quite a few times, where they started working for a company 30, 40 years ago, and when they were 18 or 21 years old, fresh out of school, and now they're working for a company and they pick those investments, they haven't changed, right? So if you go 30, 40 years, nothing's been rebalanced, you haven't gotten any professional advice, you're missing out there, right? There's different strategies that you can use, and it's important to point out with this article, this study, that 80% were satisfied with their 401k for achieving their goals. However, when they had an advisor, they were very satisfied than just satisfied. So that's important to point out, because there's a lot of people that don't know what they're really looking at. They're just looking at that percentage, and percentages can kind of get in the way and doesn't tell you the whole story. So it's important to get that professional help, and that's something we can offer.
Certainly is, and I mean, it's something I think we all do quite often. I mean, for somebody that doesn't work with money, that's not your vocation, it's not your expertise, you might as well take advantage of a no obligation consultation. Let somebody sit down with you and show you what it is you are invested in, how it's working for you. But beyond that, as Tim was saying, if we've had it there for a long time, the return might have been pretty decent over the last 30 years, as Tim said, but I guarantee you, your goals, your aspirations, and your timeline has changed in that time frame, and that's probably not the right strategy for you as it was when you were 18. So we can certainly give you advice on that. The other thing I would point out on this is, I know that there are some companies that do actually bring in that have that seminar. I know a lot don't, but there are some that do. The thing that you've got to remember, if you work for one of those companies, that your employer is doing what they're supposed to do, and they're sitting you down once a year and saying, this is it, that person standing at the other end of the break room, great hall, wherever you're having this meeting, isn't working for you. They're working for that plan administrator. They are not going to give you tailored advice to your situation. What they're going to tell you is what's best for the employer and what's best for the custodian of your 401k, not what's best for you.
The other thing I would say is, a lot of the clients would come in and like Scott was saying, is they don't understand what they're trying to do. They just talk to somebody that's right next to them on the plant floor, or a coworker, and getting their advice and say, oh man, I earned 32.5% this past year. Now, there's two things I would say to you. That's a possibility and a good time. Okay. But at the same time is, how much did he lose the year before? Did he say anything to you about that? So
they never talk about that.
Sometimes we like to exaggerate to make us look better, and your coworkers are pretty good at doing that, I would say. The other thing I would say is, it's kind of like I had a client that came in this week, had about $2.5 million, And we were just talking. He'd done a good job of what he was doing, but I asked him the reason that he was coming in, and he said, well, my advisor told me that the only thing that he wanted to talk about, and the reason I'm here with you is because I've listened to your podcast, I listened to your TV shows. I've got a couple of referrals from coworkers that you talk a little bit more than just about my investments. And I'm trying to figure out, minimize taxation, how we can do that when I retire. And this advisor told him, he said, I don't do any of that. I just talk to you about my investments. I don't care. I don't want to talk to you about taxes, how it's going to affect you when you take it out. I don't want to talk to you about health savings accounts. I just want to talk to you about investments. That's fine if you understand that, but that's not a financial plan. That is not your retirement plan. You need to have somebody that understands your goals and help you achieve them through minimizing taxation. When's the right time to take Social Security? When is the right time to start taking money out? Should I convert all my pre-tax 401k traditional account to a Roth? A lot of people come in and say, I've heard this from my neighbor and they wanted me to do this. Well, guess what? Why are you doing it? Oh, I don't want to pay taxes when I take it out. I said, well, that's fine. When you do it to a Roth, that is correct. But guess what? When you do it up front, you're going to pay the taxes up front. So if you got a $500,000 in your 401k and you convert it, that's pretty much going down to about $250. Would you agree?
Oh, that's absolutely true. And Ralph makes a good point. I know Tim would echo this. We get a lot of people that say, well, my neighbor or my coworker is doing this, and they told me I need to do that. The best example I can give is we've got 3 guys sitting around the table here right now talking to you all. We work with money. This is what we do. We help people retire. We manage money. If you looked at all 3 of our individual portfolios, all 3 of our retirement plans, they are going to be vastly, vastly different because we have different circumstances amongst all of us. We have different goals and aspirations. I mean, Ralph wanted to retire 20 years ago, so he's very, he's very conservative. Tim is never going to retire, so he, is very aggressive and, doesn't care if his money goes up or down. Right, Tim?
Sure.
So what?
Sure.
Thanks for elaborating.
So Chris, what he's trying to say is I'm so damn old that, I don't have to worry about the money because it's never going to be here for me when retired.
You just took that to a whole play. I got nothing.
But I think that's really important to point out is, when you're working with an advisor and the advisor's the right fit, they're looking at everything holistically, and it's not just, okay, hey, we've got somebody from, whatever company coming in and let's talk about the investments inside the 401k. But what we haven't really touched on was the fact that there's a lot of folks that have old 401ks that are just kind of hanging out and still doing the same old thing from 20, 30 years ago. One of the biggest questions we get a lot is, hey, I've got an old 401k. Should I just roll it into my new one? Well, you could if you want to, but why are you going to limit yourself to your investment options? So that's really important to point out, too, is don't just let, we've talked in previous episodes about just your money sitting on the sideline. Don't let old 401k sit on the sideline.
Because guess what? I've got clients that came in and they had a 401k 25 years ago and left it there. And because of the fees, when we finally got to them 3 months later after finding out where it is, because it had been sold 14 different times in the last 20-some years, that guess what? There was nothing left because all the fees took the value of the account down.
And the other thing to mention is the 401k or whatever employer-sponsored plan that your employer is offering you. That's a great thing, but it's not the end-all, be-all. I mean, it literally is not the only investment option that you have. So sitting down with an independent financial professional, we can put those other options in front of you. Ralph alluded to a Roth earlier, or traditional IRAs or any other type of non-qualified investment plan can help you grow your assets for retirement or possibly give you a more stable investment towards your retirement goals.
Because at the end of the day, the last thing I think for everyone out there that they want is to have their 401k turn into a 201k or a 50k or, just disappear outright in the form of fees or poor market performance. We don't want it to make it sound like we're beating you up for having money put into a 401k and just having that set it and forget it mentality. Obviously, any money saved towards retirement is better than nothing. But you probably don't want a better than nothing retirement. You want that dynamic retirement that you've built specifically for you. And so especially as you get closer and closer to retirement, you need to take into account these things that those other financial professionals aren't talking about for the most part, because they are there to focus on the investments. You need to talk about, taxation, what that's going to look like when that money comes out, what to do for market protection. You don't want to see a major market downturn while you're withdrawing money from these accounts. So maybe finding a way to take some of that risk off the table, healthcare, all these different factors that you probably didn't think about in the working world because that wasn't your career. That is not what you honed your craft to. That is okay. Why not turn to people who did, where that is their that is their livelihood. That is their bread and butter. That is what they do for a living. A team like Welcome Home Financial Partners. It's real easy to set up a time to speak with them. Again, it is a no cost, no obligation time to come in and sit down and speak with them, maybe looking at options, especially as you get closer and closer to that retirement red zone. Find ways to make your money work more efficiently for you. Real easy to do. Go to welcomehomefp.com, set up a time right there. Just click on the link. It's right there in the podcast description. Set up a time to speak with them. They look forward to speaking with you and helping you with your questions that you have when it comes to your retirement. Want to thank you, as always, for joining us on this episode of Aspire to Retire with Ralph Short, Tim Short, and Scott Earhart. Hope you have a great day ahead of you. Hope you have a great week. I appreciate the time. Gentlemen, always appreciate your time. And as we wrap up here, I want to leave you with the final word.
Thank you, Chris. So yeah, if anybody listening, if this sounds like you, if you've got an old 401k or you've been doing the same thing in the 401k for the last 10, 20, 30 years, and you actually want a strategy for your investments, give us a call. We'd love the opportunity to sit down with you in the office and we can create those strategies for you. We want to thank you for listening and take care.
All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decision, nor is it intended to be a projection of current or future performance or indication or future results. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Welcome Home Financial Partners and Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness and does not purport to a complete analysis of the materials discussed. All information and ideas should be discussed in detail with your individual advisor prior to the implementation. Each individual investor's situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstance. Advisor services are offered by Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Virginia. Being registered as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Insurance products and services are offered through WPI Holding, Virginia Insurance License Number 138509, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services to any resident of any state other than the state of Virginia or where otherwise legally permitted. Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, and Welcome Home Financial Partners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.